and welcome to the 4Corners podcast. I'm Brad, joined by Matt and Shad as always. Is that a Hartford Whalers shirt, Matt?
It is.
Wow, that's a blast from the past.
It is a blast from the past. I love it. I didn't wear it yesterday on St. Patrick's Day, but I own this. I thought I'd bust it out, kind of in honor of a St. Patrick's Day. But you know where I actually got this? I got this years ago when I visited Rhode Island with friend of the show, Chris Dimitrolo, when I was visiting him. They were selling this like at the airport. I'm like, oh my God, like Hartford Whalers, like that's really close. Like I loved it. Like I'm like, I gotta buy it. So yeah,
Hartford the Whale. Yeah,
they have not
Hartford
been.
Whalers.
They have not been a team for almost 20 years. 20 years, I think.
Yeah,
because Carolina's won a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vectron. I think it is Hartford, Connecticut.
Yeah, it's for me, it's a Mallrats flashback. I'm finishing my game. What the hell are you? Breakfast come and go, but Hartford the Whale beating on Detroit, that only happens once in a lifetime.
Speaking of team names, since they're in Matt's backyard, but the Washington football team name actually kind of grew on me, and I was sad when they changed it to something else because I actually kind of really started to like that.
The Washington football team. Now they're the Washington Commanders. Which...
but like when they were like, well, we're gonna change again, but it's like I like football team. That's kind of like a cool, because like Utah now is like the Utah Hockey Club, and they're gonna change it because it's just a placeholder. And I'm like, I don't know, guys. I kind of like the Hockey Club name because it's different.
The Commanders, I don't like it, but it's kind of growing on me a little bit.
But it's so generic.
It helps that it helps that they got a good quarterback and they're good now. So I mean that.
They did. I've said this. I don't know if I said it on the show, but I definitely have said it in real life enough that I'm a long-time Washington D.C. resident, like my entire life. I was born and raised here, which is different because most people in this area like come here. They're not from here, but. I've been a Washington football sports fan for years, like my entire life, but I got so just beaten down by the Dan Snyder ownership of the Washington football team. So to the point where I was like, I don't care. I didn't care. So now it's one of those, the Washington Commanders, like the fact that they got good, have a good quarterback. Even made it to the playoffs.
And Snyder's gone.
Like it gave me hope. Yes, Snyder's gone, of course. Like it's kind of giving me hope. It's like I still feel it's like I've been in a bad abusive relationship. I need a few years of like the good person, the good partner to make me love again.
Detoxify you.
Yeah, detox. So I'm slowly. My fandom is slowly growing. It's tentative. So it's gonna hopefully it'll come back.
Let me tell you my story. So I was a Cleveland Browns fan, and then they got this dumb fuckface named Jimmy Haslam as their owner, who then proceeded to make it a miserable experience to root for the team, and then they get a good quarterback that actually made the team fun, and then they got rid of him for a serial rapist, like a literal. How many accusations is he up to? 29. And
I'm not sure.
So that was it for me, and I'm a Bengals fan now because I couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah, I've been a Bengals and Colts fan for a long time, so I know the struggle. But when they were talking about putting a new name on a new mascot for Washington, the one that came out that I really liked was the Red Tails. As a homage to the Tuskegee Airmen. I was like,
that'd be pretty interesting.
Dude, that's a damn good name.
They should have done the Hogs.
If for the pork.
That has tradition with the team. Like it'd be a bit of a weird name, but like
without saying the full name of what they used to be, but like the Skins. Skins fans used to come and they would dress in like they put pig noses on. They call it like the fans were the Hogs. Yeah. So like the Washington Hogs like that. Yeah, and you could do like a pig or like a warthog or something.
Wasn't your offensive line like the late 80s and early 90s like some pig related name?
I think so, but I forget.
Yeah, I think so.
Like I'm a fan, but I was like I cheered them on, but I
My
couldn't be
memory's
like like
bad.
I couldn't be like the '88 lineup. I'm like I couldn't tell you. Like I was young.
I still
um
my favorite Washington sports event is they got rid of it was Bryce Harper left the Nationals
mm,
because they were never going to win and they immediately won the World Series.
oh yeah, and he went to the Phillies. It's like
Yeah.
hated rival. I've I'm again my love for Washington football has to grow again, but I've continued to be a fan of like the
Look,
other sports teams.
Matt, I
Um,
get it. I completely get it because this year, University of Kentucky basketball got a new coach,
hmm,
and we were all after so long with Calipari, you know, sucking. We were all just like, man, what are we gonna? And then Mark Pope gets hired, and in 2 weeks puts together a team that's done as well as it have, and we're like, hope with Pope, hope with like I understand, man.
Yeah,
It's
but Calipari was really good at like getting those balls just right primed for that kick that was coming when they would like implode at the absolute worst moment.
well, it's yeah, because he couldn't coach. He would recruit people and create a okay, this is going to be the pipeline to the NBA, and now that the portal's there, he's got nothing. So, yeah, he would get high level recruits, let them do stuff that made them look good, so they could get drafted high. And who gives a shit how the team does? Because that's not what he's doing. And I'm just like, no, no, just yeah.
I have to
Now
say
now we've got Mark Pope, and it's like this dude gets it.
I have to say the NCAA committee was on crack with their tournament picks this year. West Virginia got absolutely fucked for like a North Carolina team that has no business being in there.
Well, hey man, look, I'm
Speaking of,
happy that that UK got a 3 seed, man. That's where I'm at right now.
Louisville kind of got screwed with they got like an 8 seed and they
Yeah.
like I think they lost what like 4 or 5 games. Like it was a joke this year.
Yeah, there's yeah, there's some well,
But most importantly, baseball season is only a few short weeks away.
I
look, go ahead.
I've waned on baseball in the recent years.
They've
Um,
it's I'm back in because a lot of the rule changes are awesome. Like the pitching clock
hmm,
and stuff, like the games like fly now.
hmm.
They're actually shorter than NBA games now.
I might one thing they do. I'm sure they do this in other stadiums, but one thing that at the Washington Nationals, what they do, which I may try to get my oldest in this, is that not every weekend, but I think like maybe a handful of times a season, they do a like a special Sunday where you can basically sign up and your
Mm-hmm.
kids during one of the innings or like between innings, whatever, they can like run the bases.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like a thing. It's like now the kids gonna run the base and like but you just kids just run the bases like real quick and then.
You
But I
got
think
Oh yeah.
my daughter would have fun with that.
you
So
guys have my favorite gimmick though is on Easter when you do the president's race between one of the
oh yeah.
enemies, the Easter bunny always like causes some sort of mayhem. My favorite one
Yeah.
is like they're running and he like dove off of the dugout and like took all of them out but one.
Mm, yeah. The running presidents like just obviously a frequent gag at the home games and it's fun.
They have one. They do. So I have Cleveland's minor league team is in my city, but they do one where they have people dress up and they have to do the condiment thing, like the hamburger thing,
mm,
and they're each dressed as one, and they have like their team has to like jump on each other. That one's always
Yeah.
kind of funny.
I was gonna say, Brad, I have not seen a single game or anything that they've done, but I'm enamored with your Cleveland American Hockey League team, the Cleveland Monsters. And only because have you heard of them?
No, I've gone to their games.
No, that's a good name.
The Cleveland Monsters, I guess they used to be the Lake Erie Monsters.
Yeah.
And like what I guess American hockey is like what minor league hockey.
Yeah.
Or they're but I'm enamored because it's like it's a little like sea monster logo, and I'm like, I don't have like hockey jerseys, but I would get that because
They
it's like
come
a
out of
monster base.
when they come out of the games, they have like an inflatable monster on the ice. They
Oh
come
man,
out of.
that's
And
amazing.
That's fun.
their
I
goal
like
horn
that.
is they play Monster by Skillet.
Oh wow, okay.
But
I
their
didn't expect
logo,
that tie-in.
their logo, I had a shirt at one point because I've gone to a couple of games, but it's like a monster like on the water. I'll send you the logo after the game. So
They may
tonight,
become like my new minor league team
when I was
of any sport.
when I was a season ticket holder for the Blue Jackets, they would give you free tickets to go up sometimes because that's their minor league team, so you could go watch the prospects and stuff. And they play in the same stadium. They play in the same arena that the Cavs play in.
Yeah, I may have to become a fan of them. Like they'll only be replaced if they have like some sort of minor league team that has like a Sasquatch as their gimmick.
You're not a fan of the Rocket City Trash Pandas?
That would be fun. Like little raccoons. I love raccoons.
Yeah.
I bet there is a Sasquatch team in like Portland or something.
Savannah Bananas.
I'd be surprised if there were.
Yeah.
I think the Mothman would be a good team logo.
The Mothmen.
Oh, like in West Virginia,
Just
like in West Virginia.
Their caps just have the eyes right on the top.
Actually,
of
my
it.
favorite mascot because it's so terrible. Well, there's two. There's two I love. So we'll go with the crappy one that's closer to Shad first. So Western Kentucky, they're like the Hillmen or something.
Big Red.
Yeah,
the Hilltoppers.
And their mascot is a hill, so it's a red blob of nothing.
Yeah, it's Big Red.
And then my favorite is Stanford's. It's a tree, is their mascot.
Here's the someone I knew when I was in college had gone to school at Western, and because to do anything at Western Kentucky University, you have to walk up the hill to get to all the classrooms. And he was like, "Oh, it was miserable. You have to go up." And then he turns and he looks at me and goes, "But all the ladies have great legs."
Oh, and the LA Kings mascot had a long rivalry with CM Punk on social media. I think actually the mascot attacked him on Raw once, but like they would say some really mean stuff to each other. Okay, so tonight we're going to be doing 2 more episodes of the USWA. We're getting back to that, but first we're going to be talking about there was an interesting social media post from was it the WWID account? Pretty much
Yes.
Pretty much they made a couple of posts in the past week begging for bookings for their people. And it was kind of it's kind of an interesting admission. There were a lot of people trying to play dumb and be like, "No, they weren't begging for bookings." Like, yes, if they were getting bookings, they'd be bragging about how many bookings their people were getting. So, I guess my first takeaway when I saw it was just like, "Well, yeah, that makes sense because they don't really have a lot of people that I would be interested as like an independent promoter and booking. Like the people I would have booked to begin with, I would still book. But like I'm not going to pick up like Joe Schlub just because he has the WWID logo on him." And then we got some details about like the pay structure, which I wasn't sure how that would work out, but what really stood out to me is that Gabe would be scripting their matches for them, which I just saw that and I was like, okay, there's exactly why I wouldn't use any of them, because they're going to script them in some like PWG style match or some WWE style match. And there's like a 90% chance in front of your crowd that's just going to die horribly.
So yeah, when that originally, Matt, you say your thing and then I'll follow up. I'm sorry.
Well, I got a lot to say about this, but I'll just put that detail about the booking specifically was from Dave Meltzer in the I think the most recent Observer issue that came out like Friday. He claimed that official WWE ID matches, which I presume, if you want to really like split hairs, I presume that might mean the way it's actually, because people, I think they think, or they may be assuming like, oh, it's any match including a WWE ID talent. which I don't think it is. Because if you have like a WWE ID talent versus like one of your regular guys, maybe not. But if you have two WWE ID talents fighting each other, they're booked against each other, which they want to do because they did a whole thing where both male and female talent, they're going to do a WWE ID championship, male and female, because God forbid, like, the WWE doesn't have enough titles.
Yeah.
I think when you have two WWE ID talents working against in a match booked against each other, so it's purely a WWE ID match, Meltzer is claiming that for the actual booking of that Gabe Sapolsky provides a script as to what I don't know if like the finish, what is supposed to be happening, and I don't know how detailed the script is.
I'm gonna say, since knowing how they work with their talent, it's gonna be the match down to every single spot. I'm just going by how they work with their talent. It's gonna be some rehearsed bullshit they've worked on all week.
So what I was gonna say, Matt, is Fightful confirmed that if it is a match with two WWE ID signees, that's still not great. Please continue your thought.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that makes sense. That it's like if it's two people together.
And can I just add before you continue? I would guess if you book one, they're gonna heavily pressure you to do the two, like to do the ID match with two workers.
Yeah. But people immediately were, obviously WWE fans were pissed off about that reporting from Meltzer, and it's like, no, that's not true. Like, they can't be doing that. Like, because the argument against the whole WWE ID system is that this is WWE trying to screw with the indies, and they're going to micromanage the indies for any indie that actually books WWE ID talent and throw their weight around, and all of a sudden the at a minimum any indie show that books this talent, it's going to be compromised because it's going to be half booked by the WWE. And people are like, no. So people don't like the fact that obviously people who are not big fans of the WWE ID or making the claim like they're screwing with the indies, like they totally wrecked the British UK scene.
Destroyed.
They don't. Yeah, destroyed it. Like, and they don't like that. They're really sensitive at that because they know that there's a lot of truth to that. So they push back on it. And two of the things they hung their hat on was Defy Wrestling commented on Twitter saying like, no, that they're not doing that. Brett Lauderdale of Game Changer Wrestling was like, no, they don't do that. And first off, it's like, LOL, you're gonna take the word of Brett Lauderdale.
I could write
the gospel truth.
I'm pretty sure I could get Brett Lauderdale to claim that he's like Elvis's long lost son for a 20 spot on the side. Like, I don't like, he's like, let's just be honest. Brett Lauderdale is a dishonest whore.
He's carny as fuck, and he obviously is trying to get in good with the WWE. So he has every reason to lie if he wasn't a carny fuck. But it's like, really, Brett Lauderdale, the guy who's like, oh, we didn't have to pay any extra money for their Hammerstein Ballroom show that went way over curfew.
Who didn't donate
Who
didn't donate a single cent to Alley Catch's GoFundMe, FYI. It's the last time
Tony Khan? Did Tony Khan?
I don't give a shit who did or not. It's not his job.
It's not his job. It wouldn't surprise me if he did, or AEW talent did. If they did,
Jericho.
I'll look this up.
Jericho did a lot of the usual suspects. I think Britt Baker did. You wouldn't be shocked by a lot of the names that did, people that would have worked with her and stuff. But it's more she got hurt on your show. It's like kind of when who's the really short guy that worked with AEW in the beginning?
Marco Stunt?
Marco Stunt broke his leg on a Brett show and didn't get a single cent over it. But he'll be a fucking self-righteous asshole on social media about it.
If any AEW talent and or Tony Khan.
I think Cody might have donated to Alley Catch too.
If they did, then that's really speaks a lot to them, considering that Effie just couldn't stop running his fucking mouth about Tony Khan a short while ago. So his good friend alley catch, like if any AEW talent was like, providing money, that's again, shows a lot on their part. But
Yeah.
anyway, Defy and Game Changer Wrestling, Brett Lauderdale said like, no, that's not what they do. They don't script stuff. But again, you can't. We're in the digital age. We're in the information age. You can't just say whatever. People will pick it apart.
Yeah.
So they said that, and people. I know that the flagship wrestling podcast, people like Joe Lanza, actually reported or discussed this, and what they're reporting, and I believe them because I think flagship. They have some sources. They're not trying to break news. I mean, they have like a Patreon, so I guess to an extent they may get paid off this, and they do a podcast, but they're not trying to be Sean Ross Sapp or Dave Meltzer or whatever. But I believe them because they have a good track record and they have some sources. They said, it says the confusion seems to come from Meltzer failing to make the distinction between WWE ID official matches and standard non-official bookings of WWE ID talent. So there you go. Like, it should be noted that neither Game Changer Wrestling or Defy Wrestling have ever booked an official WWE ID match, meaning two WWE ID talents together. It seems like Mania weekend, which is like I saw another prominent internet wrestling personality saying like the WrestleMania weekend is dead for the indies. Like it's dead because Game Changer Wrestling I think has a show, and they're really highlighting the fact like, oh, we're gonna have WWE ID matches on it, and it's like, oh god.
It
really
hasn't. I mean, Mania weekend.
Leaning in, hit the ass.
Mania weekend hasn't been special since COVID, and even before then, it was like we used to do on this show. We used to do like breakdowns of all the shows beforehand, and like, we'd have Chris on and stuff. And like post COVID, it's just like I look at the cards half the years, and it's just like, who gives a shit?
It has gone downhill.
But it's also they don't there's very little compelling talent on the indie scene currently that would draw you for a show.
No, but there is one show for Mania Weekend that I'm interested in. What a shock! It's like the Tokyo Joshi Pro show in Vegas. Like that one, I'm interested in.
That's the only one I don't give a crap about.
Yeah, to go back, Game Changer or Defy, they haven't booked any official WWE ID matches as of like the time that they were saying, oh, no, they don't do that. So
Defy really shouldn't talk because they got royally screwed. Yeah. Where Ricky Starks ended like an almost 2-year title reign from Kenta, and then immediately got pulled because he signed his WWE contract. No, he didn't drop the belt. They had to vacate it after he beat.
That's what I meant. He vacated.
And that's that should tell you what you need about WWE and how they view the indies. It's like you could have actually just had him lose the title to someone, because maybe it's like in fairness, maybe they put the title on him and he wasn't signed, but then he signed. It's really on him. It's like if you're in negotiations or you thought you could, it's like maybe be upfront.
Yeah.
But whatever. It's like the WWE should have been like, hey, like we'll let you drop the title. And they could drop the title to anyone. As long as I guess it was like we don't drop it to an AEW talent. But they didn't. Because they don't want Ricky Starks, I'm sure to take a pinfall, even though Defy isn't broadcast anywhere.
Even though they've already screwed Ricky Starks up, but we...
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Like people are gonna lose like faith in him when he's feuding with like Ethan Page or whatever. It's like, come on.
I don't even think he's feuding with. I don't know. They've done everything possible to make him like.
Point is, Joe Lanza or Flagship is reporting that Game Changer and Defy can say like, oh no, that's not true. They don't script that, but it's like you haven't done the matches that they would script.
How would you know?
Yeah, so you saying that it's like it's that opinion's worthless because you're literally talking about something that they wouldn't do that anyway. So it's like, oh, they don't do that. You're not doing the matches that they would do that in. So you're being deceptive.
By the way, this is just a quick look up. I looked up the Alley Catch GoFundMe. 2 of the top donors are anonymous. No idea who they are. Matt Cardona, Nick Nemeth. There's 2 from Anthony LaRosa, which for some reason I feel like I should know that name, but I don't. Danhausen and Britt Baker. Those are the names I recognized off of it. And those are either $500 or $1,000 donations for it.
Mm-hmm.
No Brett anywhere or no Lauderdale anywhere.
We could check the $5 range.
Yeah.
How
But-
much is a hot dog worth?
Depends on where you get
It
it.
depends. What kind of hot dog is it, Matt?
Yeah.
Is this a Costco hot dog or is this a Hebrew National?
But I want to add a
They're
few more
not buying
things,
Hebrew Nationals.
because some people were, again, they were calling out Meltzer, and it's like Meltzer was correct. It's just that Meltzer, in 180 characters or whatever, like on Twitter, he just didn't say, he didn't specify any match with WWE talent, WWID talent, or specifically a WWID versus WWID talent, in which case those are
And Meltzer's
scripted.
95% of the time when they pull this shit and say Meltzer was wrong, he was right. Like, remember the hostage situation in Saudi Arabia where he got dragged because they weren't being held hostage because they weren't having guns held to them, which was the argument at the time. And then FTR did that podcast after they got released, and it was totally like Meltzer was 100 and Brian Alvarez were 100%
Yeah.
accurate.
But people are shitting on Meltzer because I mean, some people are just dumb, but some people are disingenuous. It's like, oh, see, he's lying. And it's like, no, he's not. He just didn't delineate. So you're trying to, you know that he's right, but you're trying, because he didn't specify, you're trying to say, oh, see, Gabe's not scripting this WWE ID talent. And it's like, well, yes, because this one's actually not facing someone who's also WWE ID. So Gabe wouldn't book this. They wouldn't script this for that.
Also, it's probably extra stupid because Meltzer's probably sitting there with their contract right in front of him.
Mm.
Like, he probably has
maybe.
like the paperwork in front of him.
But people are being disingenuous about it. And someone on Twitter, because Dave spends hours sometimes like just arguing with trolls, but people were like, oh, are you going to comment about how like you were wrong? And he's like, he wasn't. But Dave said, like, well, Joe Lanza covered the subject, and he talked, Joe Lanza on the flagship, or the flagship in general, like, talked about it, like, as I just said. But I haven't listened to the episode, but the most recent one they did like Friday or Saturday this past, just a
They
few days
didn't
ago.
talk about it much. They just talked about.
They didn't talk about it much. It was very brief. And I listened to it, but I did read like a transcript, because if you get stuff on Apple Podcasts, you can actually, they'll transcribe the show for you. So they talked about it kind of towards the end of the show, very briefly.
I actually
But
just
Joe Lanza had a
listened
good
to
point.
it, yesterday, actually.
Lanza had a good point. I think it was Lanza. I don't think it was Rich.
No, Rich talked about it more than Lanza did.
Oh, maybe it's Rich. I can't. They don't on the transcript. They don't specify who's talking. But it's interesting because the transcript I was reading, it says like either Joe or Rich, whoever it was, like they're surprised that the indies. They say the line I have is like, smartly sniff this out
That was Rich.
and
Rich.
and understand and realize that this is not really much benefit to us. We get to put WWE ID on our poster, but I guess from a standpoint, I guess I do understand why you'd be surprised. He's like, I think right now the cachet is that WWE is good and cool, and so that if you're an indie and you put, hey, we're working with WWE on our poster, that might make people think, all cool, they're working with WWE. But I think a lot of promoters see through this. I think a lot of promoters see what this is, and I think a lot of promoters aren't that enamored with a lot of the talent that they picked and are just saying, no, we're good. We'll just book people that we don't have to worry about wins and losses. We don't have to worry about them getting pulled. And that's an understated thing. Like WWE ID talent, you could plan, even if you don't do the two talents against each other, if you just want to book them and pull that, it's like, oh, we're working with WWE, we have WWE talent. WWE at any point could be like, they're not working that show, sorry. And they could pull them, and they have the right to do that because of the contract. So if you're an indie promoter, you probably don't have a lot of budget for promoting stuff. Promoting may just be something as simple as like you blast on social media or like your website.
Or you put up
that you're
put
doing
up
stuff.
poster. You
Drive around and put up posters.
You could put up posters. That's like the next level. But if you're trying to do it even cheaper,
I see him.
You could just.
I see him about, like, I'll see him in bookstores, gaming shops and stuff. But
Gas stations a lot.
But
yeah,
Here's
you
the
don't
thing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Matt. Finish your point, and then I'd like to add to it.
Well, two things. It's like, one, like, I don't want to, if I'm an indie promoter, it's like, even if I'm not doing the ID talents together, It's like I want the freedom to I'm scripting the show, I'm booking the show. I want to be able to do if I book a WWE ID talent and I want them to go out there and my vision is like, oh, I'm working with the WWE ID with WWE and I maybe bring people in. Maybe I'd be like, hey, WWE talent, like you're gonna go down in 2-minute squash to my guy. Sorry. And if they don't like it, it's like, well, oh well. And maybe they'd be like, I'm not gonna fucking work with you again. But hey, I would do that because I'm the booker. Like I get to decide what to do with my guys. Maybe I'm gonna add you in for value. It's the same thing as like back in the territories. It's like, oh, I'll get this guy because he has a name, but I'm gonna book it my promotion how I'm gonna book my promotion. There's that, but there's also like I don't want to book a talent that could get pulled at any point. Beyond that, what they're saying, and I think it's probably some truth to it, it's like there's a lot of guys, it's like, I don't know that I need you. Sorry. Like maybe he has a little bit of heat in some respects, but it's also like this is not the from a few years ago when you had like some really crazy talent on the indie scene. Like I'm not gonna be like bending over backwards to book Jack Cartwright. No offense.
Yeah.
Jack Cartwright's not gonna be like
Cartwheel
facing my champion. You're right, Cartwheel. Like he's not gonna face my champion in the world in the main event of my show.
And here's a hypothetical for you guys. So the other thing is, so you're talking about drawing extra people. Why I could probably draw, especially where I live, I could probably draw more people by saying, oh, Ricky Morton's going to be here signing autographs and paying him a stipend, and you get whatever your autograph money is. I bet I would get more extra people doing that than I would with a WWID talent and not have the headache.
Here's the thing. If the company goes through the trouble, we've signed WWE ID talent so we can put it on the poster and they're going to be there, and WWE pulls them, then what happens is if you did have extra people come in because they were going to be, that was the draw to get them in the building, and then they didn't show up, they're not going to believe whatever you say. You could say, look, man, we had them and they got pulled from the show. Wasn't anything we could do about it. And what happens is the people that were there that night get this idea that you're unreliable. And so they don't want to, you don't follow through on what you promise on. It's like, well, no, WWE pulled them. And they're going to, yeah, sure, you're just going to blame it on them. You're going to, if they're supposed to be there and they get pulled, then that's going to hurt the overall perception and hurt with other fans you would get in. Look, I can understand the idea that you get to slap that logo on your poster whenever you put it up or send it out, but then there just seems like a lot of downside risk to it.
What happens
if I was going to, let's just say, just off the top, let's just say that I was going to book somebody that's on the AEW ROH roster. And it's like, we're going to be doing this. I would be calling and checking on them like every month or maybe 2 weeks and just say, hey man, hope you're doing well. Just want to make sure everything's going okay. If anything comes up, please let me know right away so that I can announce it. So that I don't damage the perception that my local fans have of me.
Also, what would happen if, like, say, you get a WWID person and, like, they injure themselves? Like, what if they break their leg on your show? Like, what is that going to do to your potential future with, like, anyone even remotely, like, attached to that program? Like, I feel like you're going to find yourself in some dire straits, like, with booking talent after that. With how vindictive, WWE is.
I would hope that they look at it and go, this business stuff happens, but there's no telling.
It just seems like, and I also think like the problem I saw with a lot of like the Fed pillars is they don't understand, well, because the hardcore Fed pillars on social media don't care about wrestling. They don't watch anything that's not WWE. So their stark ignorance of how indie wrestling works is like, was what didn't surprise me, but it was like profound because like, the idea that an indie promotion has its own audience with its own taste, like, just did not occur to them at all when they were like talking. And it's like, no, like most of like a lot of these companies, like their fans, like when I go to a lot of indie shows, like that are not WWE, like most of those people don't watch WWE. Like if I go to, like when I went to Ring of Honor when it was here, it was Ring of Honor fans. When I went and saw Chikara, it was Chikara fans. Like if I went to see Game Changer Wrestling, it's going to be Game Changer Wrestling fans. I don't think Unsanctioned Pro runs here anymore, but like if I would have gone to one of those shows when it was still running, it would have been people that have been to like all those shows and was like a fan of that.
It was like Revolver or
Yeah.
something.
I need to go to a Revolver
You can have
show.
some crossover, but the flip side to that is that whenever they show up, if they don't see what it is they like, they're not going to come back. And how often are you going to give them what they like if they're diehard Fed heads? Doesn't seem real likely to me.
Well, and their fan base, I don't think their fan base is what it even was like 5 years ago, where there would have been a benefit, like where they had more wrestling fans, but they've chased a lot of those people away with the current stuff.
I just can't. Like, I know some people that enjoy it, and I say, you knock yourself out. I just can't.
I can't do the 30-minute promos and like watching a 2.5-hour show where less than half of it's wrestling, or tuning into a PLE where there's 4 matches for the night. Like I just don't.
Yeah.
I can't do it. Like this.
I feel ripped off with that sort of stuff.
I mean, even like even like the last episode of Dynamite, even like even that one like wasn't as bad as WWE, but I hit points with like the backstage promos where I'm like, can you get back to the ring? Like stop. Like I do not need 3 backstage promos in a row. Get back to the ring. Like I don't have the patience for it. Like I'm fine with like older stuff. Like when you watch older stuff, like the promos are real snappy. Like they're 2 to 5 minutes. They get the point across and they move on. But like wrestling shows now just stick to the same thing like for way too long.
The comparison that I have is that when you have a WWE segment that's a promo and it goes for a half hour. It's like the Reign of Terror over again. Then it's just somebody in the ring talking. In AEW, if they have a long promo segment, something typically happens during it. It's not just come out, talk for a half hour, leave. Like something happens during that typically. Hangman and MJF brawl or something like that. But I don't know, man. I can't do half-hour promos anymore. It's
like I'm saying, like AEW is way less, but sometimes even with them, I'm like, you guys are getting a little too chatty this episode. And I mean, it's still like probably not even like what one pro. But like the other thing is, how is a promo supposed to be memorable if it's a half hour?
It can be engaging, but it's not going to be there's not any part of it that's going to be particularly memorable just because there's too much of it.
It's because they're just a content mill now. So it doesn't matter. Nothing means anything. It doesn't mean anything. Some of the best stuff, it doesn't have to be long. Like, look, obviously it was a very specific momentous occasion, but think about like the promo that Hulk Hogan cut after Bash in the Beach '96 when he formed the NWO. I watch periodically. I watch that every like month, not month, year or two. Maybe at least every couple of years. Like I'll watch that promo, and it's just brilliant. And it's like, how long is that promo? I bet it's like less than 10 minutes.
There's
like probably less, like 5 minutes maybe. He just. Yeah.
As an
if it's longer, it's only because like the crowd is so incensed and like he has to like pause to like but then to die down so he can speak.
As an example, there is a Koko B Ware promo from one of these episodes that I thought was straight up just awesome, and it was probably 40 seconds at most. And it was awesome. Like I was like, and even like Shad was like, "Dear God, I'm a Koko B Ware fan now."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, watching USWA stuff made me a Koko Ware fan. It's like if I could go back in time, I'd be like, "No, get your picture with Koko. Go do that." And compliment his brainbuster too while you're at it.
But I just like, and you think about like the really memorable stuff from like the 80s that people still talk about, like the Piper hitting Snuka with a coconut, the Hard Times promo. None of that stuff is longer than 5 minutes. Like the Flair stuff that like everyone loves, like those promos were a little longer, but they were still 5 minutes or less.
It just, I remember in the Reign of Terror, the opening segment of the show would be a half hour before you got to commercial break, and it's just Triple H the whole time. And maybe I have PTSD from that, or scars, or whatever term we want to use, but I don't want to hear promos that long. If it takes you that long to make your point, then you're not good at it. And this is coming from a guy that on Fridays, I teach a class that goes for 5 hours. I have to keep people engaged for 5 hours doing that class. If my favorite comparison is a wrestling promo should be like a miniskirt. It's long enough to cover the subject, but it's short enough to be interesting. And don't let it drag on and on and on, because it gets less and less and less interesting. Is that hard? God, apparently.
There was some quote I was thinking about brevity, and I don't remember it. It's like
brevity is the soul of wit.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I always think in wrestling, like across the board, and I mean this with matches and everything, and I mean this with every company, because you can even lump AEW in with this a lot, and we've complained about it a lot. I always feel like wrestling as an art form, less is always more in wrestling. Like always leave them wanting more. You know, don't do 5 pile drivers when one will do. Don't use thumbtacks and chairs when one or the other will do. Like, always less is more.
So, piece of advice that I was given when it came to public speaking. A guy who is a very gifted public speaker said, if I have to talk for an hour, I prepare for 10 minutes. If I have to talk for 20 minutes, I spend all day on it. If I have 10 minutes to talk, I spend a week on it. Because what happens when you have that much time is you just kind of expand into it and you fill those gaps out. If you want it to be good in a short period of time, you have to work at it. And well, I'm not saying that. Long promos do not do it. You might be able to do stuff that keeps the crowd engaged, but they're not going to, it's not memorable. They're not going to stick with, it's not going to stick the same way.
Yeah, I agree because and also like whenever I've had to do like interviews or like any sort of thing, like dealing with other people, like if I ever go in with a script, it never survives past minute 1 because they always respond better to something I didn't plan with. And I just pivot to what they're responding well to and just go down that road, and the script goes right in the trash pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I've ever gone into one of those situations with my prepared stuff and ever made it very far into my prepared stuff before it's just off on a tangent because that's what's working.
My stuff's if I'm preparing to speak, it's typically bullet points. That's it. And sometimes I have to go for 20-25 minutes. So I put in bullet points so I've got space to explore it a little bit and see what keeps people's attention. Great. But if I want to be punchy and get people excited, then what I don't do is go, and, what is best for business? And then you stop and you look at everybody to make sure they heard you the first time. And it's like, no, make this pop.
I always keep
Because if you don't
keywords.
feel like you're in a hurry, people get bored listening to you.
When I do job interviews, I take notes, but then I have a list of keywords to remind me of things I need to say.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, anything I've ever dealt with like that. It never works because people never react the way you think they're going to react, and they always latch on to something. You're like, oh, you're interested in that? Like, okay, I can go with that, but that's not what I was planning to do.
I see a smile and a nod. It's like, I'm going to start pulling on that string a little more.
Yeah. So I guess we can hit the main event of the evening, which is the next 2 episodes of the USWA, which is the leap day episode of 229.92. And
oh, I forgot.
Yeah.
I didn't notice the date. Yeah.
And then there is the 3/7/92 episode after that. So we are heading into March of the year. And we have a lot of changes. There's going to be a lot of new talent coming in for this. So we get highlights of the Koko Kamala match from the Mid-South Coliseum. Frankie was on the line for this one. And Koko finally wins and wins the title. I liked his missile drop kick in this.
It's a good missile drop kick.
So we get the big Koko win finally after I think they've been kind of going back and forth for about 5 weeks now. At this point, because there was a tournament in there because the title got stripped after some controversy. Then I think Kamala won it back, and they finally he put the bird on the line, so we knew he was probably going to win there. But that's kind of the path we got to there. So then we get the debuting Fat Boys known as Meat and Potatoes defeating Shadow and Invader. So I think Meat was the one that had like a cage match profile, and he was like Tex the Terminator in All Japan.
Oh,
well, if you remember, they were confused as to which one was meat and which one was potatoes.
They even said that. Like, I think Potatoes was like, wait, which one? Like, who am I? And like, I'm sure it was played for like.
I'm meat, he's potatoes, and he goes, I thought I was meat and you were potatoes. It don't matter. We're the Fat Boys.
Yeah, and they came out to Chubby Checkers. Do the twist.
Yeah.
That really struck me as like out of touch, but whatever.
It's crazy because it's like that's like what, a 50 song. So coming out in 92, it's like if you like playing. So it's 2025. I mean, I guess you could say it'd be like playing a 1985 song, which it's like.
Chubby Checker had a resurgence in the late 80s too. I don't know why, but it happened.
That is true.
It's not as out of touch.
Well, okay, so I'm being dumb. It is Memphis, which I think would have made it more like it would have been probably more culturally relevant, like locally, which it was meant for.
It's fun. It's poppy. Everybody kind of knows it. It's for a babyface team. It's not the worst choice in the world.
And they didn't suck. I'll give them that. They didn't suck. They just did typical fat guy offense, and it was fine.
They did. They kind of just basic fat guy offense. Meat had a different, somewhat better career than Meat and Potatoes. He was King Kong, but then because of obviously like licensing rights, like copyrights, he had to change his name to Crusher Kong. But he was part of the Colossal Kongs tag team. That briefly was in WCW. Like, I'm sure they probably did spots elsewhere, but do you guys remember that?
No.
Oh, wow.
No, I don't remember them.
I remember them because, I got into wrestling in, like, mid-92, and they appeared at WCW, because WCW is, like, the promotion that kind of got me into wrestling. But they were in WCW at 93, like, for like a month or something like that. They had a match. I think it might have been at one of the Clashes, but they had a match and it was Sting and Ric Flair tag teaming.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a weird footnote to have when like you were kind of a.
This was that period where Flair came right back from the WW, well then WWF, but when he came back from them, it was joining back up with WCW. And he was a face because they had him feud with the Hollywood Blondes and stuff. Like when he came back, like he and Sting had a they faced off against the Colossal Kongs, who
It's when
were
they did
managed
like
by Harley
Flair.
Race.
That's when they did like Flair for the Gold too, didn't they?
Yeah,
Is that when he
yeah.
had
So they
Fifi
had,
like as his like manager?
yeah, yeah. They they had like a tag match. I think it was at one of the clashes, and that was really like the highlight. And they beat the Kong, so it wasn't even like here's the monster tag team that. I mean, the Kong. I don't feel like they were very good. I don't know, and I don't think Potatoes was.
He didn't have a cage match. He didn't
Yeah, I
have a
don't think
cage
he
match
was the other.
profile.
I don't think it was the other Kong.
Meat had before this in '91. Meat did a lengthy tour of all Japan as I think like Tex the Terminator or something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
All Japan would have like just random dudes like that. They'd have some guys that it's like they had amazing careers in All Japan and had great matches. Obviously, like Terry Gordy or Steve Williams, or Johnny Ace. Like a lot of Gaijin talents. Well, not Johnny Ace. Sorry, he didn't have a great career, but he was there.
I mean, it depends
some
on
British talent.
It depends on who you are and what your preference in hair color is, if that was a good career or not.
Yeah. But they would have random stuff. I remember they had like Kamala 2 doing like not this
Yeah.
Kamala, but like
Yeah.
yeah. It was weird, but yeah, they had this match. It was a quick like squash. It was a standard like big fat guy offense.
And
I
I'm
thought
pretty
were
sure
fine.
I'm pretty sure they don't come back because in the next episode they were no shows.
Yeah, they weren't. You never saw them on TV again. Apparently, they had they did hype up them.
They mentioned them on the next episode that they had car trouble or something, but they might show up towards the end of the show. And I'm guessing because I looked on Cage Match, and I didn't see any more matches with them, so I'm thinking they no showed because they probably got paid $20 and were like, "Fuck this," and didn't come back.
I mean, they did hype up that they were because all these studio shows are hyping up the non-televised
Yeah,
like Monday night matches that they have like days later. So they did hype up that they were going to have a match against like another tag team, not
They-
like a notable tag team. I think they were just like
it was like
another,
Jim
the
Steele.
Scorpions. It was the Scorpions.
No, that was
Like
who
two
they
mask
were.
guys.
I think that's who they no showed. I think they were gonna. I think they wrestled like Jim Steele and like Ricky Haynes or something on.
Oh, okay.
Because I think they worked one loop and then they didn't come back. Is what I think I saw.
Yeah,
On
they were
Cage
gone
Match.
real quick.
Yeah,
So
they worked 1 week and I think they were gone. Because I know they did work the Mid South Coliseum that week, and because they mentioned them on the next episode and just said like, oh, they had car trouble or something, so I think they just didn't come back. So then we get Brian Christopher defeats Jim Steele.
Jungle Jim Steele.
Yeah, who he did WCW for a while, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, as Jungle Jim Steele. He was there in '93. I think like '93, '94.
Maybe it's just me, but I do not like it whenever people mix gimmick names up like Jungle Jim, okay. Jim Steele, okay. Jungle Jim Steele. Unless your gimmick is that your playground equipment, I'm not really here for that.
I mostly know the name because in the Phil Singer Games community, there's a long-standing member who goes by Jim Steele.
Mm. He had slightly better success in Japan. He worked for All Japan and New Japan, and he went for a time as Wolf Hawkenfield, something where he was basically. That's like, is that like a Tekken character or something? He was like one of the fighting games.
Mm-hmm.
He basically did like it's almost like you know how like Glacier was obviously like an XP
Sub-Zero.
Sub-Zero.
Yeah.
It was something like that, but he had some modest success. He, I think, won like the all Japan tag titles once.
I think
was in, I think,
everyone's
maybe like the-
wanna...
Well, I think he was in like the G1 tag league. Once.
He almost
It
killed
was a
Brian,
modest career.
He almost killed Brian Christopher on a Gorilla Press Slam on this.
Oh, that was terrible. I noted that. I'm like, he is really green in this, but I looked it up. He wasn't very good. I put in my notes, but he wasn't very good. But he was very green. This was obviously late February in '92. He started in the business in October '91. So you're talking about a guy who didn't even have like 6 months.
Yeah,
in
I would
this.
say
So
I would say you can see why he got more chances though and got to WCW just from like his body
Hmm.
and look.
Yeah,
Um,
he had the look.
there's also a random woman taking notes here. I don't know if I've noticed her on other episodes, but she's kind of a
No,
constant
this
throughout
was the
this.
first.
Okay.
Yeah, they
This is the
called her
first time
out
she appeared.
specifically, and this was her first appearance. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah,
then
and we see more about her in the next episode, but yeah.
so then we get a drive by promo from a favorite of mine and who is a veteran because he did like Mid South and stuff. But King Cobra drops in for a promo because he's
Mm.
taking on Brian Christopher for the Texas title. I'm pretty sure we'll never see him again, but he pops in off and on. But he's a longtime veteran.
We might, because I actually looked him up because I wasn't aware of him, and he does, I think, either have matches for some of these titles or wins maybe one of these titles. So, and like I think in '92 or '93, so we'll probably see him a little more. I don't know how frequently we're going to see him on the TV stuff, but
I know I'd seen
I think
him
he pops up again.
I've seen him as early as like early '80s and Mid South here and there. And I think he is already I think he'd held the world title at this point, like 90-ish, maybe like briefly. But so then we get a recap of Eric Embry and Pat Tanaka, and Embry gets a nice little shiner out of this.
Hmm.
This looked like it was a fun match.
It looks like it was. A quick question, and we may have covered this on the previous reviews of the earlier episodes, but it's been some time since we did those. It's been a few weeks, so I had to forget. Was Tony Anthony gone from the promotion at this point? Because
I've seen the
I remember,
thumbnails. He
like,
pops back in about 3 weeks.
okay,
I believe he got injured.
uh,
I believe they injured him in some gimmick thing.
okay, because I do remember, like, because he was feuding with Eric Embry, and at one point there was like a whole discussion with like the dirty white girl who's dirty white boy Tony Anthony's like valet, that like we're calling someone in as like backup.
Mhm.
And they didn't necessarily, I think, I don't forget if they right out the gate said it was Pat Tanaka, but
Yeah, no, they did.
obviously
They
okay.
yeah, she meant.
Yes.
I know. I think the 328 episode when I was on the playlist, I saw Tony Anthony's face, so I think he'll be back pretty quick.
Okay. I'm looking it up on Cage Match. Which Cage Match has gotten, obviously, like the rating system has gotten messed up because people just review bomb it. But you know, February 25th, 92. Wow, this was obviously not televised.
They don't
But
have
February
the
20
television on Cage Match, sadly.
February 25th, 1992, USWA, Eric Embry defeats Dirty White Boy in a scaffolding match. Wow. But that
Not
actually
screwing with that.
Do
so maybe he would. So at this point, though, looks like he does pop back for some USWA stuff, which so I presume, and he even wins or challenges for the Southern Heavyweight title. So I assume he's going to pop back up on the TV soon enough. But
well, I think he'll be.
look,
I think he'll be there less because I think pretty shortly he'll be doing full time with Smoky Mountain. So
that's what it's showing.
yeah.
It's showing that very soon, like he's just doing Smoky Mountain wrestling.
And I think
wrestling
Jim
stuff.
Cornette like actually paid his talent, so he'll probably be gone real
It's a
quick.
hell of a thing there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we get our next set of promos. So Eric Embry cuts a promo, which I liked his promo because Eric Embry's pretty good. Then we get a Pat Tanaka and Dirty White Girl promo. I just noted on this one they both fumbled their lines quite a bit, or their promo.
Yeah. So I saw the clips for the Embry Pat Tanaka match and it looked like it was pretty good. Like I tried to watch it again, but I don't quite got it because they what is it, Dave Brown? Dave Brown was like he was claiming that one of the kicks from Tanaka.
Yeah, I missed it
Embry's
too. I
eye.
was looking for it.
Was it that or was it something else? I don't know, but the promo that Eric Embry cut was a good, like, fiery promo. And his right eye was legitimately, like, not gimmick, like, legit was swollen shut. He's like this, and it's just like
Yeah.
swollen shut, and he's just like talking about how he's gonna, get revenge on Pat Tanaka. I actually thought it was really good, a really good promo. And he's a dude. Look, I've had injuries. I'm sure all of us have at some point, but like that must have hurt like hell. And
Unless
that dude just
he might
was a
have.
true pro, and it's like, I'm gonna use it, and like just cut his promo. It must have hurt like
Yeah.
hell.
There might have been something he could have. I don't know. He might have been able to gimmick it. Like there might have been something he could have just put in his eye that would have like agitated it for a couple of minutes to do the promo. But maybe it was just
Oh,
an
I don't
errant
think
kick
so.
that caught him.
I've had issues with like dry eye at points in my life, but I've never, it's never been like swollen. That was swollen shut. Like he got
Yeah, I think
got hit.
he
got hit somehow.
I looked for it too because Dave Brown mentioned it, and I didn't go back, but I was like, I feel like I missed what he was talking about. I feel better now that you missed it too because I was like, oh, maybe I'm just dumb.
Well, I definitely missed like what actually happened to cause the eye to swell.
Yeah, they say it happened in there, and I was just like,
Yeah.
not seeing it, but it could just be one of those fluke things that happens.
Yeah, what do I have here? What do I have? Pat Tanaka defeated Eric Embry. Did I mistype something?
I don't know.
Do any of you have notes for what happened after the promos? 'Cause I think I miss...
We had Pat Tanaka versus Tony Falk.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
it. Okay, I missed.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Eric Embry's driver, Tony Falk.
Yeah. that's why I.
And that was
screwed up.
kind of just like a quick nothing match.
Yeah.
I had Eric Embry on the brain when I wrote that down.
Mm.
Yeah, it was okay. I wish Pat Tanaka had better gear on though. That was kind of bugging me. Like I know he's going for like a gi look, but it just looks kind of low
Yeah.
with what he's got.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
like it. I don't like it.
It looks like he has
It
sweats
wasn't
on.
flashy. Kinda. I think he was trying to just go for like, I have like a black gi on, but
Yeah.
That's if you're gonna do that, then you can't just like you need an actual gi. You can't just be like, oh, I'll just rip the neck out of this T-shirt
Or like at
whatever
least
the hell it was.
get like a belt with some highlights on it, so you kind of see like the belt.
Yeah,
Or get like something
Yeah.
with like red like kind of highlights to it or something. Like he could have done something better. I really hate his gear because it just feels like he has sweats on.
yeah, it really does.
Let's see. So this part was weird because we've noted repeatedly like this is a real weird thing with these two episodes. Like I've repeatedly complained about how no one wears their belts or has their belt on TV other than the Moondogs a couple of times. So we come back and they have like all these belts on a table and a trophy for I think it was like a bare knuckles championship. And they're hyping up this Night of Champions thing, and I have in my notes why are all these belts on a table and we haven't seen them for 2 months.
Yeah,
It's
true.
I have a theory of what happened here.
Mm-hmm.
So my theory is they were having new belts made, and that's why no one had their belts. And then that's why
I can believe that.
That's why suddenly everyone has their belts the next episode.
I can believe that.
Because did it stand out to you that like suddenly everyone had their title and were coming out to the ring with them and doing their promos with the belts after like just weeks and weeks of seeing nothing?
It stood out to me more for the Moondogs because they're like the Moondogs are the tag champs. I'm like, are they? Like, do I have no evidence to this.
No, they had the
point
belts. They had
that-
belts every now and then if you really paid attention, but they just never showed them. But like the Southern belt and like the Texas belt, you never saw those.
No.
And like Koko, when he does his promo at the end of this, had the belt on, but that was like the first time I'd seen the world title either.
Yeah.
So some interesting notes there. I think the women's title was like a beauty pageant sash or something. It looked like.
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then we get recap. What?
Before we add that, I just had an observation. it kind of go back to Pat Tanaka, and this kind of wraps into like Koko B Ware too.
Mm-hmm.
Is this was something that's really kind of amused me, but in a positive way. So I don't mean amused like it's a joke. I mean pleasantly surprised to me, but they were they're good workers and they did many more stuff in the business than just like being in the WWE or
Mm-hmm.
WWF back in the day. But I really love how people like Koko B Ware and Pat Tanaka, who at this point were longtime vets, like they weren't like they were just in the WWE and then they're branching out into a smaller promotion or the territories.
Well,
such as
Koko's
existed in
coming
the
home
90s.
after
Yeah,
a couple years.
but the fact that you see them and they're actually were booked as like stars and
Yeah.
not because they were part of the WWE, but more like this is a guy like who's good and has talent and like they're somebody. And so the Koko B Ware he just won the title and he's presented as like a big face like talent. Pat Tanaka, just really kind of is showing up here and he seems like this version of Pat Tanaka, like in a small little promotion like this, it's like, oh yeah, hell, I would book him as like a solid mid card act, like a solid mid card face. Like he could even like if I have a heel facing for like the title, like with like having the title, I could even have him like have like a little feud with the heel champ.
Yeah, because
Wouldn't
like
necessarily go over,
next
but
week he has a great TV match next week. I thought.
yeah, a good TV match. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, like I like that they did that. USWA doesn't have. I'm saying like they don't have a ton of talent in terms of like how many people are on the roster. And this was cyclical. Like people were kind of floating in and out. I mean,
yeah,
the next episode,
this week I think got really hampered because they briskly changed over their mid card in like a single week.
Yeah,
and it happened fast.
We're gonna see a certain talent in the next episode, and that I'm thinking like chronologically that person wasn't going to be around that much longer because he's going with the WWE and doing some stuff. But yeah, I just as an observation, I liked how they took guys who like in today's day and age, it would be like taking a mid card act in WWE and then like they get released, but they don't have like the airs that some people do. So it's like you book them now as in your promotion, and some people will rag on it. Like for example, Mustafa Ali is in like TNA, and some people's like, well, whatever. And it's like, well, no, maybe he'll define TNA. Like that's maybe how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But if WWE was like, oh, we're gonna release Otis, and Otis like goes and he's like signing with the company, not say AEW or TNA.
Yeah.
What it's some like it's Defy Wrestling or something. He's like, I love wrestling. Or goes to Japan, but not like New Japan. He's like, I'm gonna go work for Pro Wrestling Noah, or I'm gonna go. I'm going with DDT or something like that, and he's just doing awesome matches. It's like I like that. Like you're taking a guy who actually has talent and a love for the business, and you're showcasing them.
Yep.
So I like what they did with some of the talent here. Like I thought it was good economy of the workers they had because they didn't have a huge roster.
And they're really good at like I think where the USWA really stands out a lot of weeks. They have their stinkers worker wise, but they have a lot of veterans. Like they have a lot of solid like carpenter type guys in their mid card, just kind of putting out really like not like I wouldn't say every week like outstanding work, but they're giving you like they're hitting you those singles every week. Which sometimes like you don't need a home run. Sometimes like if guys are just consistently hitting singles, like it gives you a nice little product that gets you from week to week. And I think that's kind of like the guys they have. They're gonna give you like you're gonna watch it and it's like, oh, nothing was like amazing, but oh, that was a good, that promo was fun, that match was short, but it was, so they're just like a team that are kind of just doing the fundamentals and grinding it out week after week.
Yeah.
So we get a recap of Lawler, Jarrett, and JYD taking on the Moondogs and the Big Black Dog. As I wrote here, this is pretty much just them, Jeff Jarrett, like smacking the Big Black Dog in the knee over and over and over and over and over and over
And over.
and over.
You missed a part there, Brad, because and over.
Yeah. And then Lawler, took a couple thwacks too.
Yeah.
I think I saw him in results after this, so I don't think he's getting written off.
And over.
Yep. Oh, they
That
just
was my
did another
question.
one
Is
for
he-
good measure.
Is he getting written off?
I think I saw him in late March doing some stuff. That doesn't mean he'll come back to TV. He might just be filling out some undercard stuff.
Okay.
Well, I told you, like, I looked him up in Cage Match. I'm doing it right now. And, like, the guy in general, okay, looking at Cage Match, and again, if you're saying, well, Cage Match doesn't include some of, like, the USWA TV, so he could have had, I guess, more matches. But Cage Match is showing a total of 28 matches. So there could be some.
He worked. I'm pretty sure he was in the early Nation of Domination in WWE.
Really?
Maybe.
Was he like one of the hangers on, like they had D'Lo do?
Yeah, I think he was a hanger on. Because
Okay.
that one guy, Candyman, from like week 1 or something, I think was in the Nation too.
Yeah, I remember that for how D'Lo, the story about how D'Lo got a contract out of it because he was willing to take the crazy ass bump for it.
Yeah, so we get a stretcher job out of this because Lawler and company win, which is a rare event.
Yeah.
We get a stretcher job. Then we get Richard Lee cutting a promo from the back with the big black dog on the stretcher, and he's vowing revenge for injuring his guy. So then
look, he's cutting this promo, and they've got big black dog laying there, and they're talking. Look at the pain on my dog's face, and to me, it just looked like the dude was trying to take a nap.
Yeah, I know.
He's just laying there, and he's like, and I'm like, did you fall asleep during a promo, dude? Like, what's going on here?
I thought when they were like beating him with the cherry that they were hitting him for real to make him sell her. Like he was actually selling the leg like almost kind of okay.
Yeah, maybe they weren't like trying to hammer it to make him sell, but it was he got hit with it enough that it's like, oh right.
I'm pretty sure Lawler punched him right in the face at one point, like when he was hitting him with that table or whatever, and he just kept breaking it over his head. I thought like, oh, I think he might have really punched him there.
You're probably right.
So then Jarrett and Lawler come out. They're challenging for the tag titles this coming Mid-South Coliseum show. It's kind of the promo they've been cutting every week. It's fine. So then, okay, this is where the show hits a low. This is really bad. So, Dr. Death, not that Dr. Death, all right, which I put in the thing. So this is just a guy in scrubs. I looked him up. His name is Kenny Kendall, and he did job duty for WCW and WWE here and there. And he worked for World Wrestling Council and I think got a push. So he comes out with Nurse Cratchit, and they do this weird thing where she's asking Dave Brown if he's had like a checkup or something, which I don't know what they were going for here, but it didn't work. It was really bad. And they cut like a standard promo next week, so I think they told them not to do this again. So then
it was not a good promo.
He goes and wrestles some guy in the ring, which wasn't particularly good. She hits him with a bedpan, which Shad was theorizing they just liked the sound of a bedpan smacking someone.
It did sound very loud.
Yeah.
And I will give them credit. It's an interesting prop.
Trailblazing
Weapon.
Stone Cold hitting Vince with it like 7 years later.
Yeah, outside of that Vince Stone Cold segment, I've never seen a bedpan use as a weapon. But it was just bizarre. I'm like, what is this gimmick?
It's
like,
if you want to,
I have no room to talk because, if I had managed to get my hands on a bedpan in my early gimmick, I absolutely would have used it.
Well, you used a toilet seat.
I did.
So if you're if you're wanting to visualize
love that.
Dr. Death, he's just a guy in like Dr. Scrubs. And I will.
He had some size to him, though.
He did.
He was probably at least 6'8", in the 6-ish range. He's not like 6'8", but he's like 6 foot something,
He
maybe
he was
Yeah.
200 and something pounds. He was muscled. He was,
yeah. I was
you
gonna say
know,
he probably had a better body than like a lot of the guys that weren't like so covered up. And I will give him credit. They didn't have like cheap scrubs that he was wearing. Like it looked like he had he had some realistic looking scrubs that he was wearing.
Yeah.
mhm.
But-
It looked like they sprung for the good stuff.
Yeah, and he's gonna be bugging Tom Pritchard for a couple weeks because we're stuck with him for a while.
Yeah.
I think he was a little better in the second episode, but we'll get there. Dogs come out and kill some jobbers like they want to do. They continue their long running feud with the announce table as they beat some poor jobber on it.
That
Oh, yeah.
that has to be a rib. That has to be a rib. Where they're just
Oh,
like,
yeah,
by the
it
way,
had to be.
make sure you go flip the announce
I
table.
think they
It's like,
broke
oh
the
yeah,
ring.
yeah, okay.
Oh, and I also like it was a good bit of detail, but I like how they're like Eddie Marlin comes out like the Moondogs are like coming out, get the belts, and they like grab up all the belts and run away. I thought that was funny.
We don't need them to have more weapons sitting out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah. I actually wrote in my notes here. I'm like, the Moondogs, their hatred of the announce table continues. it's like an announce table exists. The Moondogs, absolutely not. No. Like, we gotta demolish
Dave
that.
Brown- flip this.
Dave Brown
Yeah.
cannot be comfortable for 1 second while we're
That
alive.
jobber over there hasn't been hit on the head with a piece of wood from the announce table. We have to rectify that situation.
Yeah.
You got to do it right now.
So then we
You
end
just-
with
Bonk.
a Koko Ware promo about winning the belt and facing Kamala again, and he's actually wearing the title belt, which I noted.
I like that. Yeah.
I did not particularly like this episode. I thought it was a little dull and was lacking in energy.
It felt like it was all recap to me.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
If that makes any sense, because it's like, oh god,
Which
what
is-
are we getting out of this? It's like, oh, just another damn.
And that Dr. Death segment just killed me. Like, I was going to do both episodes. I'm like, I'm just going to watch the next episode tomorrow.
Yeah.
So then we're going to go over to the 3/7/92 episode. So then we start off with Brian Christopher defeating Brian Collins. And this was a fun little match. He does his top rope leg drop.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the way he kind of rolled over on the guy when he was doing the pin. It was like really kind of douchey and like,
Yeah.
I really like the way he did that. I meant to rewind, but I was just to see if he might have accidentally pinned himself. The way he did it, but I like that. So then we get a tape promo.
Hold on. I shared this when we were talking about it, like off the air. But I'm like, there's probably few people. I'm not saying I'm a tough guy, but there's probably few people that I would want to punch in the face more than Brian Christopher when he does his dumb little laugh.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, like it's the most like douche chills, like hateable. Like, you need the taste left out of your mouth just to shut you up from that little laugh.
It's Madeline Kahn and Clue. I hate him so much that flames on the. But to me, that makes him such a good heel here.
Yeah.
I really hate what WWE did to him because like he's really good. Like there's all these little things that he does that makes him so hateable.
He's a really good heel.
And
They got the healing part down, yeah.
And they kind of made him like uber obnoxious in WWE, which I think kind of minimized his how good of a heel he is.
Yeah.
He became like a caricature. And then he basically was a non-entity until he linked up with Too Cool. And then that was the other extreme. It's like you're just like the shucking and jiving, like dancing baby face.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much that was your
ceiling. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he was a good worker, so he could have done more. But it's like, and that's what people care about. And so, God rest his soul. Like, I'm very sorry what happened to him. But
he got a tag title run out of it when that still kind of meant something. So I mean, he got something.
True.
But I mean, if he was alive today and just doing the circuit, like the convention circuit,
yeah,
like that would be your claim to fame. Like you would just show up and people would just be like, "Oh, you're too cool to dance." It's like, imagine being like in your 50s, like, all right, I still got to do this nonsense, but
Yeah.
Well,
whatever.
Scott Taylor's doing okay. He had the
Yeah.
I think they
He-
did like a Too Cool. I think they did like an early NXT Takeover match with
did they really?
with the those two short guys, the Ascension.
Okay.
What? The Ascension weren't short.
No, they were kind of short.
The
Those two
Ascension?
guys, you know, they got fired real quick because they sucked.
The two guys that got dogged for being Road Warriors ripoffs when that was the
Yeah.
gimmick they were given.
Yeah. Those guys, and this I'm talking like 2014, like 2015, I think. They challenged them for the tag titles on like the first or second takeover, I think.
Honor and Victor?
Yeah, them.
They're not short. Like Connor is 6'5", Victor is 6'2". Now that could be billed, but
That's absolutely
Yeah,
built
because if you
height,
saw them with
because
anyone of any height, they were really short
Yeah.
for the gimmick they were doing.
they
maybe
were
for the
of a
gimmick.
size. Yeah.
They're not like Jonathan Gresham, but
No, but they're
Um,
probably like 6'1", doing like a gimmick they should have been legit like 6'5" for.
they're not the murder monsters of AEW.
No,
No.
that's
Brian
true.
Cage
But
and
well,
Lance Archer.
when you saw them come out with Stardust, they weren't much bigger than him.
Yeah.
And when they were doing the Fashion Files with Fandango and Breeze, like they weren't much bigger than them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
it was not a fitting gimmick, especially after
but they're not-
NXT.
they're not short,
They're
but they're
wrestling
not
short.
tall.
Yeah, they're wrestling short. It's like it's kind of like they were short, as in like if you're a 6 foot tall point guard in the NBA, you're really short. Like that's
Yeah,
kind of like
I can. They might have been like indie tall, so they got used to working that way, and then it wasn't a good transition.
yeah.
I guess I never. You know what? I never cared for them. I
No,
never
they
thought they
weren't
were
very
good.
good.
But I never. I guess because I didn't care about them. I didn't really pay that much attention to them. I never got they're supposed to be like Road Warriors ripoffs. Like I never got that. I see it now. Like I looked it up, like their attire, and it's like, I
Yeah.
mean, I also feel like their attire, looking at it, seemed like it was almost kind of a little bit inspired by like God of War.
I always
'Cause
thought
they
they
had-
were supposed to be like Mad Max style wastelanders.
Yeah, that's true.
I felt bad for them because they did fine in NXT. They get called up to the main roster. They make their first entrance, and the announcers just buried the shit out of them. I felt bad
Oh.
for them for that. I was just
Well,
like, oh god.
Many such cases of like guys who back in the day were NXT and they were good in NXT, and then they got it brought up to main roster, and it's like the wet fart. Like the
yeah,
vo-
they
the
came
vo-
out.
The vaudevillains were
Yeah,
like a lot of guys.
like
They
I
can't.
liked the vaudevillains gimmick. I thought it was fun, but
It's fine, but that had a shelf life.
it did. But I don't know. I felt bad for the Ascension because they roll out. It's their big debut on Raw. Here they come, and then Michael Cole and JBL are like, as soon as these guys come through the curtain, they're like, "Oh, look at these Road Warrior wannabes," and I was like, "What the hell is your problem?"
Yeah.
Yeah, don't. I'm sure that was like a Vince McMahon thing, and it's like Vince would always do that, and it's like, why are you cutting the knees off like your guys? Like,
Why are you, actively harming
that's
your own
clearly an
dudes?
example of like, I didn't go for that gimmick. I got to shit all over it. It's terrible. It's like, what? This could put money in your pocket. Like, what do you
Yeah.
like? Come on.
You know, Vince always wanted to do it his own way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So stupid.
So we get a Tony Williams promo. I've seen more lively like hostage videos where someone's at gunpoint.
God, you know what? You're right. It did look like a hostage video, It was like a step above Jumpin' Jeff Farmer in terms of delivery, but a step below in terms of atmosphere, if that makes any sense.
Brian Christopher, you and I grew up together. But people say you looks like you got a real swell head now. I'm gonna take that title from. That's basically the level of that. It was not good.
Okay.
And this guy, I looked him up like back in the at the very first episodes of USWA 92 when he was like when Brian turned to him. I looked him up. He didn't have much of a career.
I looked it up.
I mean, he didn't seem like he improved a lot.
227-14 NXT Arrival. The Ascension defeat Too Cool in 640 for the to retain the NXT Tag Team titles.
640. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a really long way to go. What I think also makes the Tony Williams promo worse is they kind of did like the bookended like dueling promo thing where then Brian Christopher kind of does like a response video. And it totally just makes the Tony Williams one so much worse because Brian Christopher is just so much more like alive and natural on a mic. And he's just like, he's like, oh yeah, you know, if that guy's a loser, I'm going to kick his butt. Like, I'm awesome. And it just really unintentionally buried Tony Williams because it just was like, oh wow, he is such a stiff and Brian Christopher is like so good.
And it wasn't like Christopher was going out there and saying,
he's just being him.
Yeah, he wasn't going out there to specifically bury the guy. He was just cutting his promo.
He was just being himself. Like that's he's just so much better at it. Like I think that's the problem.
I would not argue the point. He just he did he cuts a way better promo, not burying the other guy, saying all he's saying is that, oh, you know, you're jealous and you're delusional. But he does such a better job that everyone's like, that loser over there.
It's like watching someone try to do Shakespeare in the Park for someone like, you know, doing a Broadway play.
Someone doing Shakespeare that knows how to do Shakespeare.
Yeah. So then we get a recap of Tom Pritchard and Dr. Death wrestling. This ends pretty much Dr. Death wins because Nurse Cratchit hits Pritchard with the bedpan. Yeah. And I have to say, watching this, Dr. Death isn't good, but he's fundamentally sound as a wrestler. Like everything he did was fine.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I didn't even think his leg drop was that bad. It was a little goofy looking the way he did it, but I was like, oh, it works. It doesn't look bad.
It was a little like awkwardly done, but it was fine.
I would say it looked a little. I would say I could justify it didn't look terrible because I'd say it's measured.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was fine. He as a worker is fine. It's just I really hate this gimmick.
It's such a bizarre gimmick.
It's so bland.
He's
it's
almost
just like I
a...
am Dr. Death, and I'm going to wear the surgical mask and the head covering the whole time. And and that was it. Like
you kind of, I feel like you kind of called it correctly before I saw this episode. You were like, he's kind of a blank slate for Nurse Cratchit to work with, and she's the point of the whole thing.
Yeah. I was thinking that it's almost like someone just became enamored with having, you know, this woman do this gimmick and hit people with a bedpan.
Yeah.
As a foreign object, and that this was just a vehicle for that.
I'd wonder if
this isn't.
I'd wondered if this is about the time like Kevorkian had gotten like real big in the press. Like if that's when he started, and someone had been kind of reading the newspaper and decided to kind of like be a little topical with it, but or I could see like I was gonna say the other thing I felt like with these two episodes, I feel like maybe the booker changed a bit, like
maybe
I don't know. It really just like they don't have Dr. Death speak at all. Like you're right, he's a blank slate, but he's just he
flexes his muscles sometimes.
Yeah, but he doesn't
just
say
a nothing
anything.
burger. He's a
Yeah.
nothing
it's like-
burger.
It's like, take for example, in retrospect, it's like, this is a weird, bizarre gimmick. But Erwin R. Scheister, IRS, it's like,
Didn't
you
pay
took a
the
really
gift tax.
good, yeah, you took a really good worker, like in-ring worker in Mike Rotundo, who maybe didn't have a ton of charisma himself, but you put him in this kind of like serious bureaucrat gimmick, but it kind of worked because, you know, maybe his matches weren't super flashy, but like the gimmick was weird and kind of like over the top, but he made it work. Like it was fine. Like,
he always as a wrestler felt like he had a bit of a stick up his butt, so that kind of worked, making him like a stuffy bureaucrat.
And he had enough personality to sell that.
And he seemed to really like it too. Like it gave him something to sink his teeth into. So like you could tell like he really liked, like, you know, tearing the headdress up because of the gift tax. Like, I mean,
yeah, there's always that. Like he didn't pay his gift tax. Like there was always that. So at least you have that. Like he had this kind of weird gimmick, but Mike Rotunda like talked and made it work to it, you know, to the extent it's just like the best gimmick of all time. Like no, but he made it work.
I'll tell you,
you know, Dr. Death is just like boring as hell. Like what's going on?
My favorite dumb one is Barry Darso as Repo Man, because he does have charisma and stuff, and you can tell like when he steals the little kid's bike off the street, and he's just like, you know, pedaling it away. Like you could tell he was having so much fun with it, and you know he's a big boisterous guy with charisma. So, and I also love my other favorite Barry Darso one, and you'll know what I'm going to talk about, is Hole in One Barry Darso.
Hole in One Barry Darso.
And they
man, that gimmick had to be an absolute dream, because what do? You walk out there, you talk a little bit, someone comes out, you challenge him to putt properly or something, and then you blindside him, and you're done. That's it.
And he attacked Kaz Hayashi because he did it, because I think Kaz was like in character like a pro golfer at some point in his life, so he just like nailed it, no problem, and then he got beat up for it.
I remember when Johnny Swinger did one, and he jumped him, and then there was somebody else who did one, and Darcel was just like, no, get down there like it's a pool cue. The handle, the head of the club's to hold on to it, and the guy lays down to do it like a pool cue, and he just drops an elbow across the back of his neck.
Oh, I remember
that one. It was so silly.
Yeah,
but
I think Kaz is the only one that ever made the putt too, which made his beating even worse.
I wish I'd done silly stuff in hindsight, but anyway.
But now what I do like about this, though, they do like a little bumper, I think, for the school, but they come right back with Dr. Death in the ring, and he beats Ricky Hayes, the jobber. And I really like the double tap of like him winning twice, like in two segments, because he's new and it really hammers home like with two wins, like that he's like someone kind of important. I mean, the gimmick sucks, but I like that pacing. That you just saw him beat Tom Pritchard, and then you back it up with him beating a jobber.
Yeah, you are, for as kind of boring of a gimmick it is, like you are trying to present it. It's like, oh, he's like important.
Yeah.
And again, I've talked about this on the show recently, but it's like wrestling is really that simple. Like book a guy to be important, and it's like, oh, he's important, people will follow. Like,
yeah,
it's not rocket science. It's like the Hurt Syndicate in AEW. It's when they were the Hurt Business in WWE, same concept. It's like, oh, let's book these guys as like they beat people, they hurt people, and they win a lot. Oh wow, they're like super over. It's like, yeah, what? Why wouldn't they be? Like you've booked them as like they win a lot, so they're cool, like they're you know, badasses. And oh, people are like into it because they always win. Like people like to associate with winners and think they're cool. It's like, oh wow, like, oh my god, I can't believe this happened. It's like it's not that hard, folks.
They didn't have the best HeyEW, but I liked when they were on HeyEW and Bobby Lashley's like, I'm the nice one, and he gets this big smile on his face. And then there's this whole point where MVP goes on about the Bourne novels versus the movies and how they're not right.
Yeah.
And RJ City agrees with me. He's like, I'm not talking to you.
I see, that's the thing I didn't like is HeyEW to me works best whenever the person kind of plays into interviewing with RJ, and MVP and Shelton were just mean the whole time. And it's like, that wore out its welcome for me real quick. It's just
I think the
okay,
joke
you
was
just being dicks.
I think the joke was supposed to be they feel like they're more approachable than Bobby Lashley, and then Lashley was like the easy, nice one.
Yeah, here's my problem with the Hurt Syndicate. Like, can Lashley and Benjamin still go? Absolutely. I mean, but they're cool heels. They're supposed to be heels, but no, they're cool heels. The crowd chants for them. Like, and I'm like, I really don't care for it.
I just accepted that people like Lance Archer are a dying breed in wrestling.
You mean people that'll full on be a heel?
Like, I saw him on a dark once. He chopped someone against the guardrail, and the crowd popped for it, and he went to do it again, and he's like, no. And he threw him back in the ring. Like, anytime the crowd would pop, or if they had popped and he'd do something, he'd be like, shut up.
Yeah.
And he would just do stuff to piss him off.
There's a guy who has a lot of good takes on Twitter that I follow, but Akeem, not Keemstar, who's like a bigger Twitter personality, but in the internet wrestling community, Keem, he said a while back, and it's true. If the more I think about it, the more true I think it is. He said, like, people in today's climate are not prepared or ready or want like heels, like real heels, because that's a comment that if you think about it, it's multi-layered, and it's like it's true because you're like, oh, I love a good heel, and it's like, yeah, the Hurt Syndicate, which I think they're doing well in AEW. I like how they're presented. To your point, to you guys' point, I think there is, or Shad, like, I think I have some concerns because there seems to be an undercurrent, which kind of died down, but an undercurrent that maybe people like Bobby Lashley, like, they don't want to do jobs and stuff because he had that one match with Swerve and then it was dropped.
Yeah.
And he won the one match with Swerve, then it was dropped. And it's like, he could have got more, but the logical conclusion of that would have been Swerve, like, winning against Bobby Lashley. I think Bobby Lashley may have been like, yeah, no, it doesn't work for me, brother. I don't know.
I disagree with that, because the thing when you do things like that with Lashley, and then if you're planning to have Swerve, say, win the world title back again, then you have someone out there that has a win over him that can pop back up and be like, hey, brother, I beat you. Like, that's...
Like, you're right about that, Brad, but my problem with this is that they did this whole build-up about Swerve not ditching Prince Nana and joining up with him, and it was this big thing, and then they only had one match, and I'm like...
That's kind of a Tony thing, though. There's a lot of times where, like, I mean, they only had one Omega Danielson match. Like, there's a lot of times where he leaves. He only does it once.
I would say with the Omega Danielson match, though, it's like, guys, do you really want to try and follow that one up? And they're like, I think we nailed that one. It's like, all right, let's not.
But he does.
Like, I could see that being, let's not sully it with.
He doesn't, like, run stuff into the ground. I think sometimes, though, it is smart. Like, if your plan is to have a guy win the world title in like 6 months or something, to strategically have them lose some matches they don't avenge, because then that gives you some fodder. But I also think Matt's right about heels, though. I think as a society, people are too soft, and for someone to, like, truly heel on them, they can't handle it, because, like, because to be a good heel, like, you gotta step on some toes, and, like, there is one thing, especially in, like, the wrestling world, like, people don't handle that well anymore.
Yeah, and that was Keem's point. And I feel like the storyline hasn't worked out, but he was kind of back in the day, right after Mox won the title from Danielson and did it by basically killing him. He kind of made the point, it's like, you're not ready for, like, the real heels. You're not ready for heels that do completely dastardly things.
And
yeah,
because
maybe step on social norms a little bit, especially now with how politically correct people want to be, like, or, you know, like I said, or even, like, I don't know, really don't do your sports team sucks. Like, remember the guy at Fight Fest when Fighter Fest on like the second AEW show ever, and MJF did
The guy
that.
that MJF was roasting the crowd,
Yeah, like,
and then you cut over and they found the perfect dude to have the perfect expression on his face.
that was completely like scandalized. Like, you're not ready. I don't think, like, aside from the social norms, I don't think people are ready for like a heel that's gonna really go for like the sore spot on someone. Like, there's a great when Jamie Foxx was on Rogan, he was talking about people online like insulting you. He's like, yeah, it's not so bad. And then they're like, oh, and your teeth are fucked up. And he's like, then you're like in the mirror, kind of like looking at your teeth. Like, he was kind of talking about stuff like that, how they hit something maybe you're really self-conscious about. Then you're like, oh, my teeth are fucked up, are they?
Yeah. You got a gap in your teeth, idiot. And it's like, oh man, like I do. Like,
yeah. And I feel like the old heel tricks don't work so well, because it's like you roll into town and you're like, oh, we think it's so great that your team lost last night. And everybody's like, at this point, there are plenty of fans that are just like, yeah, the team sucks this year. Have you got anything better than that?
Well, I mean, at that point, it wasn't. It was a good reaction
and
from it.
Wrestling fans aren't like sports fans anymore, so like half the crowd's gonna be like, I don't care about sports ball.
Yeah, I think at that point in time it was good for MJF, but a criticism against MJF, which I think is legit, is that oftentimes like and it's largely I think because we've seen how he can do really good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He gets criticized justifiably so because he does tend to grab the lowest hanging fruit all the time, and it's like, yeah, you could cut really good, compelling promos. I've seen you do it, like, and really have great feuds. So I don't need you to come out and be like, ha, I'm great. Oh, look at you, loser virgins. Ha, I have lots of sex and I don't play video games and other do nerdy things. I'm MJF. It's like, okay, cool. I don't care about that shit. When you're talking about how like you having a feud with Punk and it's like, I idolized you as a kid, and then you like fucking beat the shit out of him and bloody him, and then wipe his blood on your white T-shirt.
Like, I'm
and
a
it's
snake.
Like, you dumb old asshole. Like, I'm a snake. You shouldn't have trusted me. Like that's the heel that I want. Like that, not the ha ha ha. I'm so cool. Like, that's tired.
That's unironically the best segment CM Punk's done since like he came back. Like, that's still. Still top tier.
So MJF, when he's got a feud that he's motivated for, absolutely. Like the thing he just did with Hangman was great. But if he's just like, oh, I'm doing a thing with Jeff Jarrett, I guess, he phones it in. The hell of it is, him phoning it in is still better on the stick than a lot of people are at their best.
Yeah, I think that's true. I don't think people are ready for like real, because like even like if you go into entertainment now, and it really drives me nuts, like especially with like millennial writing, like when they're writing a bad guy, like they're not allowed to have any wrong think, like they're not allowed to be like racist or something because that's wrong. It's like, but they're evil. Like, they're literally trying to destroy the universe and they're not a bit racist. Like, come on, like you could, like there's that weird thing where, I don't know. I just think people can't handle certain things.
And what ends up happening is that so many people want to be liked, so they sell more merch.
Well, yeah, that too.
And it's like, no, God, be the irredeemable prick. Because you know what happens if you're that? Lots of people want to work with you because you get good heat and they get good reactions going up against you. So.
Yep, I know. So then we get a Nurse Cratchit promo, and they obviously told her last week didn't work because she cut more of a standard promo. I actually still don't like the gimmick, but I warmed a little to it this week because when she did her promo, I'm like, oh, it's not terrible. And then who I unironically marked for this, Miss Texas comes out and straight up just calls her a slut, which I laughed. And
yeah,
Miss Texas ends up getting laid out by the bedpan. And Tom Pritchard comes out to check on her. I love Miss Texas. She's great on these shows. Because she also hits Embry with no wait, was it Embry? Oh, who? Yeah, it was no, it was who was it that she hit with a trash can? Let me see. Oh, she hit Dr. Death with it, I think.
Okay.
She hit someone with a trash can, and she did not go easy on them.
Yeah.
But I love Miss Texas. She's great on this. Her promos are great. She has a good aura about her. I mean, I love Jacqueline too. I always said she was a better bodyguard than Chyna was.
I think my take for her was that she's kind of like Eddie Kingston, one of those people that you get the idea that she might not be acting like this is a wrestling show. She might be acting real.
There was one she cut on Nitro on Woman with Kevin Sullivan. She's sitting there with like a strap and she's doing, smacking her hand with it. And she's like, I'm going to beat you like you stole something.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's kind of scary. Like, I'm gonna go away now. So then, so this next segment, this next part is awesome. So there's a recap where the Moondogs cost Kamala his match with Koko B. Ware.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they skip ahead, and he comes out with a door, and he turns face here, and he just goes to town on the Moondogs. Like, I was like, this is the most badass thing I've ever seen Kamala do, because what I love about this is they've been building the Moondogs up as monsters, and they just pissed off an even bigger monster that is just tearing them to shreds.
The Moondogs are the top heels in the company. It doesn't matter that they're like just a tag team, but obviously, they've been feuding with Jeff Jarrett and Jerry Lawler, who are really the top faces. But yeah, like and I thought this was a really good segment because initially it's like, oh, like the heels are linking up with Kamala, but Kamala like turns face, and I'm like, whoa, like what's happening? And Kamala just goes to town on them, and
he's fired up for this too. Like he is just tearing them to shreds, and they actually flee in terror because he's just wrecking them.
Yeah, there's always a bigger fish. Like they mess with the bigger fish. Like the bigger monster. Like now you pissed off the bigger monster.
And this is the first time I can remember seeing them run from anybody. And they ran like hell from him.
And
like he's in the ring, they're out of the ring. He's out of the ring, they're in the ring, and it's just running laps basically.
And it was awesome. Like it was straight up just. It's probably the best thing I've ever seen Kamala do.
It was really good.
And then this is followed up by this Koko B. Ware promo. That is just I messaged them like this promo is absolutely fire. Like it is just Koko going to town, like he's super intense because he's talking about teaming up with Lawler and Kamala and how they're going after the Moondogs. And I didn't realize this because he mentions Tojo Yamamoto, so I looked it up. So Tojo Yamamoto on February 19th of 1992 took his own life via gunshot. So that's kind of why he gave him a shout out here, because I guess he was old and he had diabetes and some other conditions, so he just yeah. But this promo was fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like, oh yeah, like I want to see whatever you're gonna do, because this just straight up, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, watching these episodes have made me a Koko Ware fan. Like the dude absolutely deserves all the good stuff he got. He has a unique gimmick. He had a unique promo style, and he would turn it on or turn it off depending on how serious he wanted to be taken.
Because this was uber intense too. Like this is super intense, like promo.
Mm-hmm.
So then we get so Jerry Lawler comes out, and this is Jerry Lawler versus Tony Falk, which I was gonna say like. I love Jerry Lawler. We just kind of threw around on our Discord like top 20, and I put Lawler in there as a favorite because he's just such a master of like economy. Because a lot of this match is him working Falk's leg, and there's this way he was doing, I really liked is he's kind of working the leg, but he takes his other leg and he just steps on Falk's leg, like his foot that he's not working.
Mm-hmm.
To like keep him in place. And a lot of the matches just working it, and it's like Lawler doing his charisma and he's throwing some punches and really good punches. I think if we ever did like a best puncher ever, he'd be like top 3.
Yeah, Lawler does.
And if you ever
really,
see
really good punches.
You know who has really underrated punches is Jim Cornette, and you can tell Lawler showed him how to do it because Cornettes are really strong. Like they're shockingly good.
Well, I mean, he had to do something well whenever he was doing in-ring stuff.
Yeah. But
so.
And then the Moondogs run in, they attack him, beat him up. Kamala comes in and runs them off, essentially. Because, again, the bigger monster's lurking.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it was a fun little match. They didn't do a lot, but, Lawler is the master of making anything work.
Just to add to that, Jerry Lawler, like I can't recall if I've said this on the show before, but my initial exposure to Jerry Lawler was basically commentating in mid 90s WWE. And then he did some matches, obviously like the feud with Bret Hart, but none of it was really like that good. His in-ring in WWE was not good, so I kind of just had this impression it's like a Jerry Lawler, like, because I had heard like, oh, Jerry Lawler was like a legendary like worker, and I'm like, the commentator, like I saw his stuff with Bret, and it was not that great, which I'd have to watch it again, like as an adult, like I probably would get more out of it, but as a kid I was like, whatever. But through the show and seeing more Jerry Lawler footage, it's like, yeah, this guy was fucking great. Like he is a legend. Like he's one of the best from like that time period, like 70s, 80s, 90s, like just fantastic. So you don't necessarily grasp it, but seeing some of this stuff, it's like, yeah, like Jerry Lawler was really, really good. Great punches. He did have like the great economy of everything. Everything he did in there like largely mattered, and I mean, at this point, he was like well over probably like 2 decades.
Yeah, I think he started in the early 70s, like 72 maybe, I want to say.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously like a vet, but just great. Like, I mean, not that long ago, we did like the match he did with God, who's the guy who? Oh, Eddie Gilbert. Like the Eddie Gilbert match he did was like, that was fucking fantastic. Like,
I thought
and obviously the one of the best ones we've done is the empty arena match with Terry Funk.
I thought the cage match with Savage was good, and the Loser Leaves Town match with Savage was good. They're supposedly from late '91. His match with Kamala is supposed to be really good, and there was another one we watched I really liked. Was it the one where he and Savage teamed up to take on Bundy and Rude? I think I liked that one.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
But yeah, I mean, and like I think Bret Hart was actually really complimentary of him and just said he was easy to work with, got heat like real easy, and it was easy to like work with him.
Like, I think, Matt, to your point about seeing Lawler do stuff in WWF that didn't look very good, is that Lawler was good enough to get heat without really doing a whole lot, and since he didn't do a whole lot, there wasn't anything he was doing to outshine whoever he was working with. Because, if he had kicked it all the way up, then, you don't really want people turning on Bret Hart in that or anything like that. So,
and I think he was supposed to be less than because he was also an announcer. So I think he was always working to that being lesser than who he was working with, unless it was like a job
playing it back.
Yeah. Like you kind of wanted him to feel like he was always out of his depth and could only get by on like shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what we have here. Okay. So Richard Lee promo, usual Moondogs destroy jobbers. They have like one of those, those old school like cardboard trash cans that they were beating them with, and Lawler and Kamala run out and run them off. Usual shenanigans. I did note that the announce table was not assaulted this week because I think Lawler and Kamala saved it.
Yeah, Kamala stopped him.
Yeah, and then we have recap of Embry and Tanaka. Embry wins this week via nefarious means. And then, so we get the lady that's been taking notes that they've mentioned. This is Lauren Davenport. And she's going to wrestle. I think she wins the women's title at some point. She tried a little too hard in this promo. Like, she got the thesaurus out, which I didn't think worked. She was kind of ill using her big words.
Yeah, it was not a great promo.
No, she should have kept it simple.
It was forced. It was repetitive. It was overly complex, and it didn't really sell the point of why she was there. She's there scouting talent. That's really, she's like, I'm scouting people, and it's like, you don't have very good wrestlers here. And the announcer's like, no, we have great wrestlers here. And instead of it just being like, yeah, okay, sure, and walking off, she's got to try and come up with some kind of retort. And by the way, we got the typical, it's like, oh, and all of you people smell bad or something like this. Like, oh, God. So sick of that line.
What did she call them? I did like what she called the wrestlers, but used car salesman. I did like that line.
Yeah, there was a good nugget in there.
But like the only person that's ever made like the big words work in promos is Nick Bockwinkel.
Yeah, I never did try to do that. Maybe I could have gotten away with it, but
Nick Bockwinkel like understood how to properly use them for one, but also to agitate people. Like that's why Bockwinkel did them. And I think he would he would do his homework and like look it up and how to use it in sentences and stuff. But
yeah.
But yeah, it was whatever. It was a miss. So then we get an Eric Embry promo that's like in his backyard or something. I actually like this promo because it's another fiery.
I thought this was a really, really good promo, and I liked it a lot.
I was he did disappoint me there, so I'm like, oh, I kind of like this. He didn't go with the racial angle, and he did one like racial thing, but it wasn't terrible. But I was about to be like, I kind of like how they haven't brought like Tanaka's race into this very much.
Okay, so Eric Embry has an accent, and
he's a Texan, I believe.
I feel like I'm pretty good with Southern accents because my family is from Georgia, and to the point where my parents had an accent that they never lost, even though they left Georgia and were in the DC area for like 30 plus years, but they never lost their accent. And I heard their voice all my life, so it didn't even almost register that they had an accent. So I didn't get it. But
if you want a real fun one with that, so my grandmother was a war bride from World War II. So she came over from England because she met my grandfather over there. And so I knew her my whole life, obviously. And she went to like one of those like grandparent school events, and my friend was like, I love your grandmother's British accent. And I'm like, my grandmother has a British. Yeah, I know. I know. It's like that's just how she talks. I looked him up. He's a Kentuckian, actually.
Oh, okay. Kentucky.
I think Kentuckian is the right word, isn't it, Shad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, my family's from the South. It doesn't. I feel like I can hear Southern accents, and it's fine with me. Not everyone is like that. My wife is from Texas, but the first time she met my parents and like talked to them afterwards, she was like, I couldn't understand what some of the things that they were saying. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, their accent was like too thick. I'm like, accent? Like it's like doesn't register. But all that preface to say, like, Eric Embry was talking, and he threw a line in there, and I'm like, did I just mishear like the Southern accent? It sounded like he was saying China-looking head. Is that accurate?
That's what he said.
Okay. So that was a racial angle that he threw at like Pat Tanaka.
I feel
He was
like
obviously has some Asian
I
ancestry,
feel
but
like it was racial, but I also feel like it was a descriptive word too. Like
Mm-hmm.
beyond that, I thought this was a good. I thought it was a good promo.
I did too.
Um,
Because it was
'Cause he was complaining that Pat Tanaka was a crybaby whining because he like the preface is that they showed the clip from one of their event shows where Eric Embry used
he
like
broke the trophy over his head. That's what he was part of the trophy, and then he broke the trophy. So
and he like basically used the trophy to like clock Pat Tanaka, get the 3 count.
Yeah.
And then broke the trophy some more, and Pat Tanaka in kayfabe complained to Eddie Marlin as the booker, like I want a match against him, like to get revenge.
Well,
And so
I liked how he's like, and you're so stupid. Like I didn't cry when you busted my eye, but you went and cried because
Yeah.
I used that trophy, and you're so stupid. You asked for like an anything goes match.
Yeah.
and so he talks about how like, oh, you're a crybaby because you were like complaining to Eddie Marlin about that. But then he goes like, oh, you're so stupid because anything goes, and he starts holding up like this sequence of like props.
I like the big
And it's like
snow shovel. Like I could even use this
Yeah.
shovel.
It's
You
like
fit
different
right
weapons.
over your head.
Yeah, different weapons. He's like, I can take this shovel. Like I'm good at
he
golf.
just
I'm gonna
had, like,
hit
a-
this over. Holds up a golf club. I'm gonna hit this over your head.
Or the tree branch. The tree branch was also funny.
Yeah.
I can
But then
bring
it was
part of
good.
a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said before, like he's crazy and he's bigoted. But Jim Cornette did back in the day. I heard him do a shoot where it's like one of the things he said, which always stuck with me, is like if you're doing a promo, you want to hype up your opponent, because why wouldn't you? If you trash your opponent and you win, then it's like you beat a nobody, so who cares? And if they beat you, it's like you get lost to a nobody. So why do I care about you? You want to hype up your opponent, and this wasn't like hyping up necessarily, like, oh,
It was about what
Pat
he was
Tanaka's so
gonna
great.
do. It was about what he was.
Yeah,
gonna
but it was fiery. It's like, oh, like I got the best of you this time, but it's like, oh, you complained, but like I'm gonna get you, and it's like that still worked because you're like he's the arrogant, chicken shit heel.
Yeah.
Thinking like, oh, I'm gonna get him, I'm gonna get you, like you like I'm gonna trick you, and it's like I'm sure that the match that they're gonna have, like Pat Tanaka will get his revenge or get a comeuppance on Eric Embry, because that's Eric Embry's.
Or he'll lose
position.
and they'll up
Yeah.
the stakes a little more.
Yeah,
If
I liked it a lot.
the promo did, he insulted Tanaka, but he was calling him stupid. He didn't say that he couldn't wrestle. He didn't say he couldn't. He called him dumb for picking a stipulation that he was going to exploit.
And it's,
You know
Yes.
what?
and,
Makes that makes perfect sense.
and it works it kind of pisses you off and be like, well, I want to see him kick your ass now because
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, because he could be like, oh, you're stupid for picking this, but it's not like, oh, you actually are. He's not necessarily saying, Pat Tanaka, you actually are a dummy.
yeah.
He's basically saying, I'm going to get the better of you. But as a logical person, you yourself watching this, like we were, it could be like, yeah, that's what you want to do. Who's to say that Pat Tanaka's going to like take that shovel you're waving around and take it and beat the hell out of you with that shovel?
Yeah.
Like, you could be the dummy
Yeah.
thinking like you're going to get the best of. I thought it was very effective. I liked it a lot. I liked his use of props.
You know what it reminded me of is when we did the Bluegrass Brawl and Dirty White Boy was cutting that promo in Central Park, and he was like he was doing like he was breaking all that stuff with a chain, and like he broke the melon because like Tracy Smothers has a melon head, and the beer cans because like Tracy Smothers is a drunk. It reminded me of like that promo minus the Desert Eagle.
Yeah. That was a hell of a gun to pull for that, I got to tell you.
Oh yeah, he was very proud of it too.
Yep.
So then we go into the ring. I guess this is the main event for the week. So this is Dr. Tom Pritchard versus Pat Tanaka, and I thought this match was really great for a TV match. Like it really shows the value of like veterans. Like the work was really well paced. Like they kept it simple, but like it was just a nice little match. I thought was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
It showed the value of having guys like this on your roster.
Absolutely.
This was a really good match, and it was really short, uh, which was fine for the time. And again, this was like a studio show. So, but this, I would have wanted to have like a 10-minute match between these two dudes because I feel like they really could have cooked. Like it would have been,
Yeah.
it would have been really solid. Can I go back real quickly? I talked to you about this with you guys offline, but I really did appreciate the Eric Embry stuff. Made me appreciate him because it's like that's a dude. Because if you know the story of Eric Embry, like this is pretty much his last year of wrestling because he got injured in a horrible car accident.
Yeah.
And that was basically the end of his career. By the end of the year, in '92, like he had a bad car accident. He came back and did one match and then retired. Which to me, it was like you recovered enough that you felt you could back in the ring, realize no, I can't do this anymore, and retired. But he was a good worker. And he was he going to be like you're going to put your world title on him? Like no, but if that guy had not got injured, he could have absolutely been like a solid mid card guy at a place like WCW, or he could have been like the seasoned vet doing some fun stuff in the mid card of like ECW.
I think
Mhm.
I think what he would have done is you would have seen him go to Smoky Mountain, then that would have led to him going to ECW. And then I think you would have seen him as like a Saturday night guy, like when Bischoff was just handing out like 6-figure checks to everyone. And I think that's kind of the career arc you would have seen. And maybe if he was well liked and still could go, maybe like he'd do a couple of those super early ROH shows.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say like what Matt's saying, like he just gets it. Like he gets it like on a level that a lot of guys don't.
Yeah.
And
he's good at being a heel. He makes sure that there's not anything redeeming to him. And so he's easy to hate, and he's really good at riling people up.
I also appreciate that he looks like a lot of times that he just has a vat of lard that he rolls around in before he comes out just to look extra kind of greasy.
Yep.
Because what I like about him, and it takes a certain level of esteem to do that. Like he's not a skinny guy. He's a little overweight, but he really like accentuates his chubbiness in a way that pisses you off.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he pulls down the straps and like you see his flab. And it's like, come on.
It's like look at my man titties. Like that's kind of like and like the way he does his hair and like facial hair and stuff. It's like when the Bucks go heel and Nick Jackson goes like with the obnoxious haircut.
The obnoxious haircut, and Matt Jackson's wearing like a bunch of pearl necklaces, and they find ways to make their gear just utterly obnoxious. And it's like, why are you wearing that? And it's like to piss you off.
But like he's really good at like he really accentuates like his body in a bad way, which I think takes a lot of self-esteem.
Yeah, it's smart. It's really smart.
Yeah. But then, so this match ends with Dr. Death running in. Now, before we get into the shenanigans, it was a really interesting thing at the end. So Pritchard wins by DQ because Dr. Death runs in. And then he and Pat Tanaka talk it over afterwards. And I really like this because they're two faces. They actually talk it out and they agree that they're just going to take a draw because that Pritchard shouldn't lose because of what Dr. Death did. So they change it to a draw because they said like, hey, like, let's just do that. So I actually really like that. Not being, solved in an antisocial wrestling way. And then this leads to Miss Texas comes out and smashes Dr. Death in the head with the trash can, which she did a good job with. She was not afraid to make contact there. And then we get the Tom Pritchard promo afterwards, which now this is kind of behind the scenes. So Matt made a joke early on before he saw this part about how this feud's really about the meta commentary that Dr. Pritchard's really just pissed off that this pretender is like claiming to be a doctor when he's the true doctor. And that's kind of what he says here. And I just laugh.
A very meta joke. He gets a promo. It's like, oh, why is he calling himself a doctor? And it's like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
And then Miss Texas cuts a promo, and she's a really good promo. I'm not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot that it's been a few weeks since we watched some of this stuff, but Yeah, I forgot that she was in the promotion.
Mm-hmm.
And Brad, you were saying like, oh, you love Miss Texas, and it's like, yeah, actually, Miss Texas was actually like a lot of fun.
She is. It's a sad
The-
thing that they don't have like it's an era where she doesn't have a lot to work with.
That's
Yeah.
I was just thinking that, yeah, like, and it's unfortunate because like she's leaps and bounds above the women on this roster. Like, no offense, but I mean, they did stuff with like Dirty White Girl, I guess, but
Dirty
Yeah.
White Girl's
oh,
okay.
yeah,
I
she's okay, but
appreciate
it's like
I
yeah,
appreciate that Dirty White Girl has the commitment to successfully do run-ins in like 6-inch stripper heels. So I mean,
yeah,
she at least has the
yeah.
commitment.
I mean, I don't have a lot of exposure to her, but to her credit, is like she seemed like she was making a go of it and trying,
She's
which
Mm-hmm.
is
she's like a I don't know when she first came. I mean, she was at least in Continental in like '88, so she's like a 4 or 5 year vet of working with Dirty White Boys. So I mean, she's not like new at this point.
yeah,
Like you
yeah,
can tell she's. I mean, she flubbed her promo bit last week, but like, there's a difference when you can tell someone like Lauren Davenport is trying to do a promo, and when
mm,
someone like Dirty White Girl is doing a promo. Like, there's just a different level of ease when Dirty White Girl or Miss Texas does like a promo.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I will always give points if you're at least trying. Like, even if it's not clicking, if you're at least like trying versus like you're just going through the motions, like, or you're just so bad at it. Like, she at least tried, and sometimes it lands, sometimes it doesn't. But she's working. But yeah, like Jacqueline, Miss Texas was on another level. Like, she actually was good.
She has an aura
So
about her,
she,
like she has a presence.
yeah, and she was pretty young still with this. I think she was probably like in her 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, yeah.
So yeah,
And I think she has a good chemistry with Pritchard too.
yeah.
But I think she'd probably have a good chemistry with anyone. Because I always thought her and Sullivan had a good chemistry.
Hmm.
But I thought the first episode kind of sucked. I thought this episode was great. It's probably, I think the very first episode with that big long Moondogs recap is the best one we've watched, but I think this is probably the second best episode we've watched.
Yeah. The out of the two we watched tonight, the first of these two, just it felt like there was too much recap in it. But the second one, I mean, stuff rolled, it picked up and went. Like it was a,
I thought
it was.
there's a lot of intensity, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
100%.
It felt like
Yeah.
it felt like angles were peaking in this one, whereas like last week did not feel like that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to have some good stuff out of that.
Yeah. So, like I said, this is I enjoy most of the weeks. Like last week was a rare one-off, but like, what have you guys thought about watching like this kind of smaller scale, but like weekly regional, like territory wrestling after about 10 weeks of it?
I appreciate. Yeah, I like the appreciation it's given me for some wrestlers that may not have been like that. I didn't appreciate the way I should have. Like I said, with Koko Ware and stuff like that. But then on the other hand, it does feel like some stuff's really getting drug out long enough that I'm kind of like, oh god, when are you? Because I know like doing stuff with the Moondogs is fun, but this is gonna wrap up sooner or later, right? Like, and so it's one of those things that's a mix of the there's stuff that I really enjoy, and then there's stuff that's kind of like, could we, start rolling this one up or anything like that? It's an interesting dichotomy.
I feel like Kamala got me right back in on the Moondogs because of the dynamic shift of they just found a bigger monster that they're afraid of.
Even with that, it's still kind of like this is going to run its course sooner or later, right? Because it just feels like it's been a while.
It feels like it's the same
So-
thing every week. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, like I like the Moondog Shad, but I get what you're saying. It's like every week it's like, all right, we're gonna go like destroy some jobbers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had like their feud with Lawler and Jarrett and somebody else.
Robert
like,
Fuller.
yeah. So it's like, you're gonna do new stuff. It's good, but it's also like, okay, well, I'm seeing this every week now.
Yeah.
But I mean that you know how it was back in the day. It's like, okay, well, we got something that's hot that fans respond to. Let's just milk that,
Well,
milk
it's-
that until
And it's
can't milk it
complicated with
anymore.
Memphis because they're weekly promotions. They're trying to sell you back into the arena every Monday, so they kind of they have to work a little differently than like you're running the loop, so you can like be a little slower with your
Yeah.
stuff.
I've enjoyed this. It is exposed myself to either people that I've seen before, like I was like saying, extolling the virtues of like Pat Tanaka and Koko B, Ware, who I've seen plenty of times, but I like seeing them presented as like stars, as like main stars, not just like they're gonna, or the Orient Express in WWE is gonna have like an awesome 10-minute match with like the Rockers.
And lose if they
And that's gonna be
wrestle
great.
anyone with a
Yeah.
name.
Yeah, but yeah. Or Koko B, Ware is gonna have he's gonna get squashed by like the Warlord
Mm-hmm.
in like a late '80s like match or something, but early '90s match. But yeah, I like seeing that, and I like being exposed to guys that maybe I've seen in some respects, but not as big stars like the Moondogs, because I would see them going back years, like when they before the WWE Network, when it was the WWE 24/7 on demand services. You would see like the Moondogs pop up in like those '80s like MSG house shows or something.
Yeah, because Spot would
Filled with
always be like a
Spectrum.
rare
Yeah,
highlight because his matches
Yeah.
would be okay.
yeah, but you'd see like here's a 10-minute match, like undercard match between like Moondog Spot and like Salvatore Balomo or Jose Luis Rivera. It's
Or-
like, okay,
All right,
like
my dreaded one on those old WWE house shows was I feel like they must have wrestled like 5 million times. It's like you'd get one of those SD Jones or Baron Mikel-Saluna matches, and
club.
it'd be like, oh god, and they'd always go like 20 minutes. Like, oh my god, why
Yeah.
do you hate me?
it's like, come on, bro. Yeah.
Well, I think that is it for this week. It's going, so we'll catch you next time. Thank you for joining us as always. Shad's making a motion. Sorry, it's very late and I've gotten very tired. But thank you for joining us as always, and we will catch you next time.